When I was a freshman in college, a guy named Pete, 21M, fake name, began harassing me to date him. I refused over and over again, and it ended with him ripping my shirt off at a party to try to touch me. I filed a police report, and Pete was found guilty of assault. I have a 1,000 feet restraining order against Pete. Fast forward to this week, and my roommate Shelly needs a subletter to take over for her while she studies abroad for the summer. She didn't know she was leaving until 2 weeks ago, and has been looking for someone to take over since then. She found Pete on Craigslist and asked me if I approved. I showed her my court documents, but Shelly claims she can't find anyone else to take over and that I will have to deal. We got into a heated argument, and she just left the apartment. This morning, Shelly texted me that Pete would be moving his stuff into the apartment today. I called the police, but Pete hasn't showed up yet, so they can't do anything. Shelly also says she will be staying for the remainder of the week. The lease says that she can move whoever she wants in without my permission. Same goes for me. But there's still the issue of the restraining order. The landlord told me that it was between Shelly and me to figure out. We both have 1-year leases that expire in December with the same terms. TLDR, roommate is trying to sublease our apartment to a man I have a restraining order against. She told me to deal with it. Landlord and cops haven't done anything about it. Relevant comments. Comment. Is Pete aware that you're the person he'll be sharing the apartment with? You might want to let him know that you'll be calling the police if he sets foot in the place. Oh, Pete is aware that I'm the roommate because Shelly posted the ad with a photo of us both. Without my permission. I already promised I would be calling the police, but Shelly is locked in her room and refuses to listen to me. I'm chilling by the door with 911 already pre-dialed. Comment. I agree with the consensus of calling the police the moment he arrives. Has he actually signed anything, like a sublet agreement? If so, he'll probably be on the hook to pay for an apartment he can't legally step in. Also not a lawyer, but I can't imagine that attempting to enter a living arrangement with a person holding a restraining order doesn't negate the restraining order. The first question I would ask Pete if I were a cop/judge is, why did you think you could live there without violating the order? Oh, Shelly claims that Pete has already paid her for all 3 months in advance and that he signed a contract with her. I told her that her contract does not override my restraining order, but she basically put her hands over her ears to drown out what I was saying. I plan on calling the cops the moment I see his car pull up, which is less than 1,000 feet. Shelly will still be here for the rest of the week, so I'm afraid this will escalate. Update 1. 5 days later. Hi, everyone. Thanks for reading this update. I have added some extra details at the beginning to better explain what happened. Details. Shelly and I were not close friends. We were simply roommates with our own separate bedrooms and a connecting kitchen/living space. I have only known her since last December when we originally signed our leases. We have hung out, but the only real connection we had is that she likes anime/Japan and I am Asian. The Craigslist ad that Shelly posted didn't have a photo. It turns out that she had used a generic photo of the two of us in an ad on our college's Facebook page. Shelly took it down before I got a chance to take screenshot. Actual update. After I made my Reddit post, Shelly was locked in her room for 3 hours. I tried to talk to her, but she wouldn't come out of the room. She left her room to get food and just walked past me as if I didn't exist. Everyone who I called told me that until Pete actually showed up, no crime was being committed, so I couldn't report it until then. I just sat by the door and window watching for Pete's car. This continued until early Saturday morning when Shelly woke up for her morning jog. I was still on lookout for Pete's car. I stayed up all night on the couch. Shelly tried to sneak out past me, but I woke up and blocked the door. I needed an explanation for why I was being forced to stay up all night waiting to call the police on Pete when she knew that I had a restraining order against him. Shelly's explanation was that the restraining order doesn't matter to her, that she has dealt with unreasonable people like me before, and that she has never listened to any restraining order before now. So why should she just for me? The more I listened, the sicker I felt. Shelly basically admitted to me that she is a cunt. I told Shelly that she was a real piece of work, and that I was going to maintain my watch for Pete, and that I would contemplate taking legal action. She told me that whether I liked it or not, she was done looking for subletters, and that was my problem. I told her to get out and go for her jog, and she left and came back a bit later and locked herself in her room again. Sometime around noon, I had accidentally fallen asleep because I had been awake 36+ hours at that point. I woke up and saw Pete helping Shelly move her stuff into her car. I didn't see him in the apartment, but he was helping her in the parking lot. I immediately locked them both out and called the police. Shelley and Pete came to the door again, and when Pete saw it was locked, and when he saw me watching from the window, he blew up at Shelley. He started to ask her why I was in the apartment and why Shelley didn't tell him that I was a roommate. He demanded his money back, and I could hear them screaming at each other through the door. The cops showed up, handcuffed Pete and Shelley. I told them my story, and Pete said he had text messages and emails to back himself up. The cops checked his phone, saw texts from Shelley saying along the lines that her roommate wouldn't care about X, Y, Z because he was a chill guy. Pete had posted his own ad looking for a male roommate. That's right, Shelley is a liar too. The cops released Pete because he had proof that he didn't know it was me. I'm okay with this because I saw the emails/texts too. Shelley was charged with disorderly conduct, and her mom came to get her. Sunday evening, Shelley and her mom come back to the apartment to finish packing for her study abroad. Shelley made some snide remarks about me, definitely going roommate hunting, to find her a subletter as I said I would. I ignored her. Shelley left for her plane this morning. You know the good thing about separate leases. I am only liable for my rent, not hers. So I'm going to sit on my butt for the rest of the summer while she gets evicted for lack of rent payment. TLDR, Pete had no clue it was me. Shelley got arrested. She thinks I'll find a subletter, but I'm going to let her get evicted. Relevant comments. Comment. Sounds like a crappy situation all around, but it also sounds like Pete didn't know, and now that he does, will not be back to bother you. Since you are on separate leases, you should hopefully not have anything to worry about legally or financially. Let Shelley deal with those issues herself. She brought them on herself. A quick question. If she does fail to pay, could you in any way get kicked out? Or are you pretty much in the clear? Either way, good luck. Your roommate is immature and deserves the consequences of whatever happens to her in this situation. Oh, our leases explicitly say that we are only liable for our individual portion of the rent, so I'm in the clear. And Pete really didn't know about me being there. That's how much of a bitch Shelley is to let a man get arrested over something so stupid. Commenter. I mean, what did she think was going to happen? On top of the shameless assholery, Shelley sounds like she's missing a few marbles. Oh, I think that what happened was that Shelley was focused only on going abroad and not focused on her own actions. She couldn't find anyone, so as soon as she found someone she thought problem solved and ignored the problems until I called the police. OP also had this comment. I wish she could have gotten charged with more, but she started bawling her eyes out to the police officer, and he went easy on her because she looks so young. To me, it's just another sign that she's an awful person because she was manipulating the cops. The lease states explicitly that I'm not liable for her rent, and even if she tries to sue me, it's my word against hers, and I'm confident I would win that legal battle. Pete is staying as far away from it as he can, and he apologized to me and is trying to get his deposit back from her. Update 2 about a week later. Hey everyone, I'm back with another update, and boy, has it been a roller coaster. I honestly thought that, after Shelley took off for her study abroad, things would settle down, and I'd just chill in my half of the apartment. But of course, I should have known Shelley's brand of chaos would find a way to haunt me even from across an ocean. What happened this week, right after Shelley left, weird packages started appearing at our door with her name on them. At first, I assumed she'd done the normal thing of forwarding her mail to my address while she was away, as if that's even remotely logical. But these weren't ordinary Amazon boxes some were open, and inside, I found random stuff like half-eaten candy bars and messed up notebooks with rants scribbled in pencil. It creeped me out. The return labels were from various places around the country, all with different sender names. I took pictures of everything, filed it away in a folder, and put the boxes in a corner. I don't know if Shelley's messing with me from abroad, or if her personal drama is finally catching up to her. Either way, I'm not about to go digging through her junk, but it's definitely weird. On Tuesday, the landlord started banging on my door at 8 a.m., demanding to know where Shelley was. Turns out she never arranged to pay rent while she's away. He's furious because she's already late, and I guess none of her checks have arrived. I calmly reminded him, over and over, that our leases are separate. He pretended not to know that, which is total nonsense because he's the one who made us sign separate leases in the first place. Eventually, I had to shove my copy of the lease in his face. He left in a huff, but mumbled something about contacting the school's housing department. Honestly, that's her problem, not mine. Yes, Pete's name popped up again. On Wednesday evening, I got a message from him on Facebook. It was super short and basically said, "Just wanted to say I'm sorry about everything. I'm trying to get my money back. Do you know how to reach Shelley? She blocked me. I took a few deep breaths before replying. I wasn't looking for any more drama, so I gave him Shelly's mom's email because that's the only contact I have. Shelly once asked me to message her mom about a bill. Then I blocked him. The last thing I need is a casual chat with a man who literally tore my shirt off at a party. Restraining order aside, I want zero to do with him. Yesterday morning, I heard another loud knock on the door. I cracked it open just enough to see a middle-aged man I'd never met before. He introduced himself as some kind of private investigator looking for Shelly. Yep, I felt like I was suddenly in a cheap soap opera. He showed me a worn-out photo of Shelly older than anything I'd seen and asked a bunch of personal questions. Where does she hang out? Who are her friends? Does she have enemies? I didn't know whether to laugh or scream because in that moment, the only words I could think of were, "Y'all are insane." I told him we're not even friends. We just share an address. He pressed me for more info, saying something about how she's got debts that need paying. I refused to give him anything else, so he handed me his card and left. I have no idea if Shelly's gotten tangled in more serious trouble or if this guy's legit, but it definitely explains why random packages started showing up. Feels like some bizarre cat and mouse game that I never asked to be a part of. Where things stand now, Shelly's abroad. She's probably off slurping ramen in Tokyo or doing karaoke, while her entire life is blowing up back home. I haven't heard from her once since she left. Landlord, still calling me daily, acting like Shelly's rent is somehow my responsibility. Every time, I remind him about the separate leases. He grumbles and hangs up. Pete, blocked on all platforms, done. End of story. The packages, piling up in a corner. I'm half tempted to toss them, but I'm afraid it might come back to bite me if it's evidence of something bigger. The private investigator. I stashed his card in a drawer. It's a bleak reminder that Shelly's bizarre storyline isn't over yet. My questions: will Shelly come back to an eviction notice plastered on the door? Most likely. Are these packages from people Shelly owes money to? Possibly. What was the private investigator actually looking for? Beats me. Am I going to throw a huge Shelly's gonna be homeless party? Tempting, but I'm not that heartless. I just want her drama out of my life. That's it for now. The constant knocking on my door, the landlord meltdown, and the mystery packages have made me half crazy. I'm trying to keep my head down, stay focused on classes, and not get roped into Shelly's secret side missions. I'm still sorting through all this nonsense, and I don't know what's going to happen next. All I can say is, if Shelly tries to reappear like the ghost of terrible roommates past, she's going to find the locks changed and a stack of unopened boxes waiting for her. I'll keep you posted if things get any wilder, which, given my luck, might be soon. But for now, I'm just crossing my fingers that this apartment remains Shelly-free and drama-free for the foreseeable future. Update 3, about 2 weeks later. Hey everyone, I'm back for another round of a never-ending Shelly saga, and I honestly wish I had better news to share. Sometimes, I feel like my apartment is turning into the set of a low-budget drama. I've tried ignoring all the chaos, but it just keeps crawling back under the door like a bad smell. So Shelly finally contacted me via a random Instagram video call at 2 a.m. her time, and something like 1 p.m. for me. I nearly declined because I don't even really check Instagram messages, but curiosity got the best of me. Shelly's face popped up on the screen, looking sweaty and frantic, like she just sprinted across Tokyo to find Wi-Fi. She started ranting about how her mom is being insane and that she's not paying the landlord a dime until I get rid of those packages. Then she went into this weird monologue about how she fled the country because she's tired of drama, and apparently it's all my fault that the private investigator is after her. I reminded her calmly that we barely know each other. She brought Pete into our apartment. I owe her absolutely nothing, especially after she almost allowed my harasser to move in. She said something along the lines of "fine then," and abruptly hung up. I haven't heard from her since. If I thought the first few boxes were weird, the newest ones are straight up bizarre. I found one just this morning that seemed to be stuffed with random receipts and old photos of Shelly with a group of people I don't recognize. Another package had a single page of scribbled writing in a language I don't speak. Could be Japanese. Could be something else, I really have no idea. I've been stacking them all in Shelly's empty bedroom, which is now more of a creepy mail depot. Every time I hear a knock on the door, I cringe, afraid it's going to be some new delivery or some angry person demanding Shelly's whereabouts. Remember that private investigator who came knocking a while back? He showed up again. This time, he caught me leaving the apartment to run some errands. I was literally juggling groceries and a coffee, and he pops out from behind the stairwell with another round of questions. Apparently, Shelley owes money to different people, some from a failed business or some shady side hustle. I'm not even sure. The PI demanded I give him Shelley's direct contact info. I told him all I have is her Instagram, which she uses sporadically, and her mom's email. He called me obstinate and went on his way. Pete hasn't shown up physically, thank God, but a mutual acquaintance told me he's blowing up group chats, ranting about the money he lost. He's threatening to take Shelley to small claims court if he doesn't get his sublet fees back. Normally, I'd root for anything that makes Shelley squirm, but it's also crossing my mind that if he gets desperate enough, he might show up here again. At this point, I'm just hoping he leaves me out of it. I don't need more police visits or lawsuits. My landlord is borderline harassing me now. Every day, he texts me about Shelley's overdue rent, and every day, I remind him our leases are separate. He claims Shelley told him I'd take care of her portion while she was gone. I told him to dig up our contract or check his email for the copy I sent weeks ago, but he keeps making vague threats about joint responsibility and eviction proceedings. I'm not worried about getting evicted myself, but the constant noise is wearing me down. My finals are coming up, and the last thing I need is some landlord meltdown on my doorstep at 7 a.m. So what's next? At this point, your guess is as good as mine. Shelley is somewhere in Japan, apparently ignoring her responsibilities. The package pile keeps growing. The PI keeps lurking. Pete's feelings swindled. The landlord is borderline delusional. The only silver lining is that I haven't actually seen Pete in person, and Shelley's bed is finally free of her random junk, so my apartment is a little more spacious. Final update roughly 3 weeks later. Hey everybody, this is, hopefully, my last post about Shelley, Pete, and the weird avalanche of trouble that's been piling up since forever. Things have finally reached the point where I can't see this getting any crazier. Though I probably shouldn't say that out loud. Let me walk you through it. A few days after my last update, the landlord sent me a text short and panicked. Please call me ASAP. Shelley's back. Apparently, Shelley had just shown up at the leasing office in a total rage, demanding her keys and yelling about unfair eviction threats. She claimed to have proof that I'd promised to pay her share. Spoiler, not true. The landlord wanted me to come down there and straighten everything out. I refused, obviously. I told him I'm not some middleman in Shelley's meltdown. So I stayed put, locked my door, and waited for the inevitable storm. Sure enough, that same night, around midnight, I heard rattling at the apartment door. I looked through the peephole and yep, you guessed it, Shelley was back, dragging a giant suitcase. She pounded on the door, shouting about how she'd lost her phone overseas and that I'd ruined her life by not forwarding her mail or paying her rent. She actually demanded I let her in because, in her words, I'm on the lease too. Before I could even respond, I heard a second voice, a man yelling from the hallway. My heart stopped for a second, thinking it was Pete. It wasn't. It was that same private investigator, looking just as furious as Shelley. He told her she wasn't going anywhere until she settled some financial obligations. And that's when everything went from bad to full-blown insane. I cracked the door open an inch, just enough to see them. Shelley had a wild look in her eyes, like she'd been running on adrenaline for days. The PI was holding a folder stuffed with paperwork, waving it around and repeating something about an outstanding debt and legal consequences. Shelley kept shouting at me, "Open this door or I'm calling the landlord." PI interrupted, telling her, "If you try to escape again, I'll have to involve the cops." I had zero interest in letting either of them into my apartment, so I closed and locked the door again. Shelley started pounding, so hard I thought the hinges would snap. It was loud enough that a neighbor peeked out into the hallway and yelled at them to calm down, or he'd call the police. And then, as if it were all choreographed, who shows up? Pete. He must have gotten wind that Shelley was back in town because he showed up in the hallway, looking just as ticked off as everyone else. He started shouting at Shelley to return his sublet money. Shelley screamed back that he was a liar and a stalker. The PI chimed in, demanding his own piece of Shelley. The neighbor was yelling for all of them to quiet down. It was this bizarre shouting match trifecta outside my door. From my side, I dialed 911. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's that when a group of angry people cluster around your door, it's time to let the professionals handle it. Cops got there surprisingly fast, probably because it was midnight on a weekday and we live near campus, so not much else was going on. 2 officers showed up, and what a scene they walked into. Pete shouting that Shelley owes him 3 months of rent. The PI demanding Shelley's contact info for pending lawsuits. Shelley freaking out and insisting I've framed her for everything. Me, behind the door, telling the cops I have a restraining order against Pete. The police took statements for what felt like hours. They confirmed my restraining order with Pete, and he was told to stay far away or get arrested on the spot. The PI was told to leave the premises unless he had an actual court order. Shelley tried to argue that she still had a right to be in the apartment, but I showed the officers the text from the landlord about eviction proceedings. They told her that if she's being evicted, she can't force her way in. Shelley was escorted off the property by the cops. I don't know where she spent the night, but it wasn't here. Apparently, she's been officially served an eviction notice. Pete left in a huff, cursing at Shelley the whole way down the hall. The cops warned him once more about violating the restraining order if he ever came near me again. The PI gave me one last dirty look and handed me a business card with instructions to contact him if I knew any more about Shelley's debts. No thanks. The landlord texted me the next morning, apologizing for the chaos and reassuring me that I'm in no danger of eviction. Shelley is out of the lease, he said. It's just you now. The mountain of weird packages is still in Shelley's old room. I'm leaving it locked up until the landlord or the police come to collect her stuff. I haven't heard a peep from Shelley. No more midnight banging, no more random calls. I'm hoping she's finally taking care of her mess on her own. Pete hasn't tried to contact me, and I intend to keep it that way. The private investigator hasn't shown up again, which is a massive relief. Part of me was bracing for a final twist like Shelley climbing in through the window or the PI camping out in the parking lot. But so far, it's been quiet. Strangely quiet, in fact. Where I'm at now, the tension is gone. The half of the apartment that once belonged to Shelley is now just an empty, slightly depressing space. I'm wrapping up finals, finally sleeping without worrying about who might show up at the door. The landlord says he'll officially switch me over to a single lease next month, and honestly, I feel like I've just run a marathon that I never signed up for. Is this the end of the drama? Probably. But if I've learned anything from this entire ordeal, it's that you can never fully predict the next ridiculous turn life might throw at you. So I'm cautiously optimistic that the madness is done, but I'm keeping my guard up just in case. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm calling this story closed, or as closed as it can get under the circumstances. If any new madness pops up, you'll be the first to know, but I'm seriously hoping this chapter stays shut for good. Thanks for sticking around. See you, hopefully never again, for something like this on the other side.